Hey everyone, welcome. I didn't unmute my mic there for a second there, but I'm in rare form tonight. Welcome to another episode of Uncanny Media, the show with your host, your good buddy Spider, bringing you all the best entertainment that you can ever imagine. Maybe not quite that extravagant. I don't know. I'm exaggerating. Extravagant, exaggerating, I don't know. How many other different words start with for example? I'm in a mood. I am in a mood. I don't know why. I'm feeling kind of peppy, kind of uppity, kind of in your face, sort of, which is probably irritating for some people. I don't know. I'm feeling good. And I want to thank you for tuning in every week. I appreciate you. I appreciate what you do. I appreciate you taking the time out of your day to listen to a few minutes of my show. Without you, the show wouldn't be here. So thank you. What are we gonna do tonight? There's so much stuff going on in the world. Like, it's a rough situation right now. It is tough. There's a lot of big news that happened over the last several days that we aren't really gonna talk about in depth because I had a topic already picked out and I don't want to deviate from that. But we do have to mention at least what's going on in the world. And the United States, not we, because I'm not in the military, and I also did not vote for the current administration. I didn't vote for the previous administration. I didn't vote for the administration before that, or the administration before that. My voting has not been for the last several administrations. Okay. Now, that's not to be taken as a point of support or resistance. It just means I did not put my vote towards these specific people. I put my vote towards things that I felt mattered more. And as much as people might say, well, you wasted your vote, I don't think I did. Anyway, off topic. The United States and the Jewish state of Israel attacked Iran over the last several days, as of this recording, in a coordinated assault aimed at capitalizing on the protests that have been occurring in Iran recently, which are a result of the various other nation states economically sanctioning Iran and cutting off their money supply because of their nuclear program. Okay, now that's simplifying the situation a bit, but that is the surface part of it. And I'm not going to dig so deep into it to get into the actual nuts and bolts of what's actually going on, because there are layers to this, but this is what's out there right now. Okay. If you don't know anything about the situation, that what I've just said will tell you the basics. It's up to you to kind of dig deeper and see what the history of the conflict is like. But as part of this military action, the United States also managed to assassinate the Ayatollah of Iran. Now, this guy has been in power since 1989. He's been in power almost not quite as long as I've been alive. I have a few years on him. I'm a few years out from when he became power. But when I was aware of anything politically, whether I cared or not is another story, because I didn't care until I was a late teenager. I do remember him being mentioned many times. I do remember talk on the news as my parents watched the news, sometimes late at night before we were having dinner or various things. The Ayatollah of Iran, he has been killed. He's dead. So the leader... Now, Iran, it's interesting. They have an Ayatollah who's supposed to be the spiritual supreme leader, right? But they also have a president. Okay. And the president currently of Iran is not somebody who was, he's not important enough even to mention by name, but a few presidents ago they had a guy named Ahmadinejad or something like that. I'm getting it completely wrong. Please don't quote me on that. He was a guy who was like hardline, like the Americans are worthless and the Western Europe is terrible and this and that, and Iran will murder everyone and is holy fire and all. He was just a hard-ass kind of guy. And he was backed by the Ayatollah because the Ayatollah had the same thoughts. He's Orthodox Muslim, which Islam is it doesn't seem like it should be complicated, because when you read the Quran, which I have, because I feel it's important to be informed. I've read the Quran, I've read the Talmud, I've read various versions of the Christian Bible, I've read some side spirituality from Islam, or not from Islam, but from Buddhism and Hinduism and different things. His interpretation of Orthodox Islam has been very strict, which is kind of like the Taliban, which has taken control in Afghanistan and Iraq. Okay? And it's basically a viewpoint that means that Islam is supposed to take over the world and you're supposed to murder everybody who does not believe. That's Orthodox Islam. Now, I'm not, before anybody comes at me, okay, I am not saying that anybody who practices the Islamic faith believes that, because there are a couple of schisms within Islam. It's not as pronounced as the different, how Christianity has Catholicism and the Protestant faiths and the various different denominations, okay? Islam has a couple of different splits, okay? And there are many people who are Islamic who are just like, live and let live. We believe one way and we're going to believe this way, and that's fine. We're not going to go out and kill you and attack you and whatever. But there are the Orthodox hardliners who believe that, yes, this is the way and we are going to kill everybody who stands in our way because you don't believe and you need to believe. And if you don't, well, you should die. And that's what a lot of the Middle East, unfortunately, is about. And Iran was like that for the last however many years. And that's what the Ayatollah was all about. He was strict Orthodox. If you do not follow Islam, then you deserve to die. And again, that is not to say that everybody who is Muslim believes that same thing. Okay? Now that we've got that out of the way. But he's dead now. He's been killed in a bombing on his compound, his headquarters. And the whole situation is kind of a mess right now, because we went in, we did this thing, we didn't have a plan for how we were going to build up their government afterwards. So now there's a big vacant space, and apparently our government's stance is that, well, the people of Iran will make the decision that they will do what is right. And maybe they will, but they have to get the Iranian military on their side. They have to convince. There's a long way to go, is what I'm getting at. And what's interesting about this, because I was unsure how this was going to go. The Middle East is generally, it's volatile, but many of the countries over there, because they're Muslim, in the wake of an outside of aggressor like the United States, they're likely to band together because, you know, the faithful will usually stick together. But that has changed. Saudi Arabia, which is 100%, it's diehard Muslim, it's Islamic to the core, and they enforce the headscarves on women and various other things, so they're not particularly progressive, but they also have made a decision where they want that Western money. They want that American dollar. And Saudi Arabia has made huge efforts to bring in United States investment and United States dollars. I've talked about the pro wrestling scene, how they've paid for a ton of stuff to bring to Riyadh, which is the main, I don't know if it's the capital city of Saudi Arabia, but it is an important tourist destination. They're using that for the FIFA, the World Cup for soccer. They're using it for boxing events. They're using it for comedy events. They're using it for pro wrestling. All sorts of things are converging in Riyadh because Saudi Arabia wants more money. And they have made compromises that they may not have made years ago. And interestingly enough, with the deal with Iran, Saudi Arabia has sided with the United States. They have sided with the money rather than their faith. And that's a big deal. I don't know how many people understand how big of a deal that is. They've decided that they want that United States money more than they do allied with a pillar of the Islamic community, which is Iran. So they have decided to fight back with the United States against Iran. As has Qatar, as has the UAE, the United Arab Emirates. It's such an interesting way that things have gone. And people are going to say, well, you're saying that Trump united all these people. And I'm not saying that, because just because Trump happens to be the guy that's in right now doesn't mean that he's the one that they're allied with. They're allied with the United States because of the dollar, because the United States dollar is still the strongest currency in the world, which is funny because it's all based on credit and it's not based on gold anymore, but we've been over that. So these countries over there have made decisions based on economics rather than based on their religion, which is very fascinating because that's not the way that Islam is supposed to work. If you read the Quran is very particular about austerity and giving to charity and etc. and different things. Okay? So it's a very fascinating situation. And this is another thing I have to address. Some people have said, oh, it's the beginning of World War III because everybody's involved. This is not like the previous world wars. World War I and World War II were particular in that while so many countries were involved that you can say that it was a world event, there was a side A and a side B. You were either for this or against this, and that's where you clashed. And this doesn't have that. This conflict, there's a lot of stuff going on, like Pakistan and Afghanistan are fighting all of a sudden. Pakistan is fighting the Taliban in Afghanistan, which is ridiculous because they were usually against India there's so many little things happening, and you can say, oh, it's a world war, but it's not a world war. It is a series of small wars. The world is not at war as in one side against another, one ideology against another, which is how it was the last two world wars. This is a multi-faceted, multi-fronted series of small conflicts that are all localized. And you can say the world is at war, but it is not a world war. It's not World War III. Okay? The world is at war, but not a concerted effort World War III. Okay? So that's where I'm coming from with all that. And I don't think it's going to get to the point where you have sides where it's one versus the other. You're not going to be able to call it a world war. It's going to continue to be a world at war for another several years, I feel like. But anyway, I've talked too much about that topic. I didn't intend to get into all that. I meant to, I want to talk about music. Let's talk about music. I've been listening to some new music lately. And this is a show that I meant to do the last 2 weeks. And I didn't sit down and listen to the albums that I was intending to listen to, because I was busy doing so many things. I have a lot of things that go on in a given day. Right? I have a lot of things that happen that I got to pay attention to. And I don't have time to sit and just reflect on other people's music. And when I say that, I mean specifically that I'm going to be reviewing some new music that I listened to recently. Because it's something that I don't often get to do. In my household, of course, I'm taking care of the house. I'm taking care of my daughter. And because most of the music that I like to listen to it tends to have bad language and it's things like that, which I don't think necessarily is like, oh, well, just because it has bad language means it's bad music, because it's not. Any sort of language has a point if it's used effectively. If it has a point to its use. If you have a song where every other word is just shit, fuck, then that's kind of pointless. I mean, there's no reason. You're just going for shock value, right? But if you place these words strategically throughout your lyrics as a point, I think they're effective. Just like in conversation. If every other word out of your mouth when you're just talking to people in random conversations, shit, fuck them, fuck shit, you know, that's kind of ignorant. It's like any other word. It's effective in how it's used, when it's used. And if it's overused, then it's pointless. There's no reason. You're uneducated, you're ignorant, there's no reason to throw it in there, unless you don't have any idea what you're talking about. It's the same with music. It's the same with movies. Right? Any form of entertainment. I don't do shock entertainment so much. I'm not a big fan. I don't mind things that are shocking and intended to be shocking, but if that's all it is and there's no other point to it, whatever. So I can't listen to a lot of these things just around the house at a large volume, because I don't want my daughter to just pick up these words and just say them casually, because words have power, words have meaning. And I don't want her to just, at her age, at 11 years old, just be like, you know what, Dad? I saw this fucking Pokemon, and this Pokemon was just fucking around. Like, I don't want her to do that while she's playing her games, okay? Because that's pointless. She doesn't understand. She doesn't know what it means. She just has no concept of the impact that would have. Right? So I try not to listen to music that has a lot of, and unfortunately, most of the music that I enjoy, it just happens to have bad language in it. And that's not the reason that I enjoy it. It just is a consequence of what I'm listening to. It's a coincidence. So I have to take time out of my day to sit in a quiet space with a pair of headphones and my portable music player to listen to things. And I did that recently because I wanted to make this episode. Because I've been really focused on music lately. And we're going to get into that, the reason why, in a bit here. But let's talk about some music that I listened to recently. And you might not be into these same things that I'm into. These are albums that they're artists I'm already a fan of. And they're albums that may be okay and maybe not. It's not Taylor Swift or Cardi B or Jay-Z or Beyonce or, any of those people. Because I don't listen to any of that. So if that's what you're into, I'm not going to be insulting and say, "Oh, you suck." I'm just going to say that's not what I'm going to talk about. The first album that I'm going to review is the latest KMFDM album. Now, KMFDM is a band, more or less, they're a German band. At least that's where the concept began. It was German. They did a German, techno kind of industrial sort of thing. And they've been around for a long time. An awful long time. At least the 90s, if not the 80s. I have liked a lot of their material. It is, on one hand, political in a way that it talks about a general political sense, about how the political landscape is across the world, and not specifically about any specific situations. And also just in general about various issues about how the world is. They describe themselves as like an anarchy kind of band, apolitical and whatnot. And I don't know how true that is, because they've been making music for so long. I'm sure they're making good money. And there's been times where some of their albums have kind of fallen flat. Like, some of them have been okay, and some of them have been kind of like, whatever. And others have been, fantastic. There are some KMFDM songs that will always have a place on my music player to play in the car. I will always have them queued up, because it's just great. Their latest album is called Enemy. And I always go into things with an open mind, because you never know how something's going to plan out. I mean, sometimes a band or an artist will take the safe route and they'll do the same thing they always do, and then it's kind of like, all right, I like them because I like this sound. Deftones, while putting out unique music, always kind of sounds like Deftones. Right? Like, every Deftones album sounds like a Deftones album. So even if there's some tracks that are like, wow, this is really different for them, it still sounds like them. So it's kind of safe. You never have to worry about it. And some of the things kind of blend together, and a few of their albums are kind of like, okay, it's the same thing they always do. I like this sound, but I can't name a track from it because it sounds exactly like the last one, which sounds exactly like the next one, etc., etc. KMFDM kind of does that sometimes. But this album, it sounded different. They obviously were trying to do something that stood out from their usual sound, And in a couple of places, it worked out. In a couple of places, it didn't. The first couple tracks, which are the title track, Enemy, and the second track, Oubliette, were both good. I liked them. I thought they were alright. After that, you had L'Etat, which was it's forgettable. Vampire, which is also forgettable. There's a track called You, which features the daughter of the lead singer in her debut vocal capacity on an album. And it was decent. It was decent. I mean, the lyrics aren't something that were like, whatever. But it was alright. It was an alright track. The following tracks, Outer National Intervention, is about the migration and immigration issue in the United States. And I'm not going to say one way or another how I feel about that political stance, but the song was kind of dumb. The following song was awful. It's called A-OK, and it was just, I don't know what they were going for. I can't even describe it. If you want to listen to it, look it up on YouTube. I'm sure it's out there, because the album is available right now. KMFDM, A-OK. The song is terrible. I don't know what they were trying to do. I'm sure they meant to be ironic, and maybe I'm just missing the point. And if I am just missing the point, I guess I am, because I think it's terrible. It's the worst song on the album. Then they did a updated version of an old track of theirs called Stray Bullet, and they called it Stray Bullet 2.0, and they did it instead of the industrial techno kind of sound that the original was. They did it in this weird reggae kind of like kind of way. It didn't work. It did not work. I don't know if you're into that. I don't know, but the lyrics and everything do not fit the way that they did the music. I'm sure they had fun, but it wasn't great. After that, they had Catch and Kill, which was kind of not a great song either. They had an instrumental called Gun Quarter Sue, which was okay, but it just drug on a little bit. It kind of went for a while. And then they had the Second Coming, which was mostly like a spoken word kind of thing over some music, and it was boring. It was not. So KMFDM Enemy, I'm going to give a 4 out of 10. It had 3 songs that I liked, and the rest was not great. Out of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Out of 11 songs, I liked 3. So I'm going to give it a 4 out of 10. The next album that came out, which I had high hopes for, but after hearing a couple of the singles that were released ahead of time, I was kind of, I don't know if this is going to be what I hope it is. And unfortunately, it was a self-fulfilling prophecy. This is the latest Rob Zombie album, entitled The Great Satan. And I did not go track for track on this because every single song ran together in a way that it was just one long, miserable kind of just mess of it. And musically it was fine. Musically it was okay. He has a lot of great musicians that work on his albums, and I can't fault them for anything because they do their parts really well. Everybody in his band does a great job. So I want that to be clear. But lyrically, he's not putting in the effort anymore. He doesn't care. I don't think he gives a shit. I think he's just like, I'm going to say whatever random whatever comes to mind, and people will like it or they won't. Who gives a fuck? And that's what it was. Rob Zombie's The Great Satan is a great mess of just bleh. Everything sounds the same, and none of the lyrics matter. And you can say that about previous Rob Zombie / White Zombie material. I mean, he does like to dig into pop culture references and horror movie things and just kind of random wordplay, but a lot of times in the past it has worked relatively well. It's been clever. It stands out, and this one just doesn't. This album just does not stand out in any particular way. It's just it's the same song multiple times with different words and slightly different vocal intonations. It's boring. It is boring. The latest Rob Zombie album, The Great Satan, is boring. And if you like it, that's fine. That's your own opinion. My opinion is that it's boring, but that doesn't mean my opinion is the way that the universe works. Okay? That doesn't mean that what I'm saying is how you should feel. It's just how I felt about it, and I felt it was boring, which is too bad because I like Rob Zombie. I have every one of his other albums. I liked most of his catalog, but the last few albums, there's only been like a couple tracks out of each album that I've been like, oh yeah, I'm going to play this more. I'm going to play this all the time. Like there's just not, it's not the same as the White Zombie Astro Creep 2000 days with Electric Head Part 1. Just, it's not the same. So let's go to the next album, which is again, I'm just so disappointed with people. I don't know what it is. Maybe it's me. It could be me. It could be that my taste in music has gotten worse. I'm willing to admit that. But let's talk about the latest Puscifer album. This is from Maynard Keenan of Tool and A Perfect Circle. He's the lead singer of Tool, the lead singer of Perfect Circle. This is his own project that he doesn't share with other people. He has other people that work on this with him, like Currying Around and Matt Mitchell, and that's his band for this project. But this is his brainchild, right? When he first came out with Puscifer, the first album was a mix of purely comedy tracks, obviously, and then some really interesting, introspective kind of just stuff that really got to me. There are songs from the first album that got me through what I was going through in life at the time. There's a song called Mama Said that came out around the time of my breakup when I moved to Akron, Ohio. And the breakup that followed, the track it got me through that. It was vitally important to my survival as a person. And there are other tracks around that era that came out that have been so important to my growth as a person. But over the last couple of albums, they just they did a series of live albums over the last couple of years that were just really poorly done. They were really, I know they were going for like, let's be as artistic and as avant-garde as possible with our songs that have been previously recorded. Let's make them something different with live remixes. And they really were not good. They weren't great. I know they were just trying to experiment and play around, and so that's why I'm not going to say that they were awful. But the last real album was kind of forgettable. There was only a couple songs on it that I still listen to. And this album, in my notes, because I took notes on these albums, the Puscifer album, Normal Isn't, is what it's called. It's called Normal Isn't, right? I didn't go track by track because I wasn't impressed enough. But I have a couple of things to talk about, but not many. Overall, my notes were that the music is good, but the lyrics are sophomoric and childish, even for Maynard Keenan. Because there are points where he just doesn't even try to be clever. It's so on the nose or so just like meant to be insulting this kind of... It's like being a kid in middle school or junior high, regardless of what you want to call it, junior high or middle school, and making poop jokes or your mom jokes or whatever. It's that lame. And half the tracks can be described in this phrase: you hate Trump, we get it. Because that's what a good chunk of the album is. It's him talking shit about Trump. And I get it, it's fine, whatever. I don't have a stake in that race, but my gosh, does it make boring music. It's so boring to just hear you be like, oh, and Ministry has gotten the same way. Ministry had 3 albums talking about George W. Bush, and it got kind of tiresome towards the end. But this is the same way. This is like, oh, I get it. You hate Trump. Big deal. So many people hate Trump. Okay. Can you talk about something else? Do you have anything else you want to talk about? Because everybody else is talking about, we hate Trump, blah, blah, blah. If I hear it often enough, I'm not interested in hearing it as entertainment. I want to be entertained. And that's all I heard. The 2 tracks that I have listed, there's 2 tracks. One is called Self-Evident. And I don't even remember why I put this. I wrote that it was unironically ironic. And I think it was the anti-Trump song. And it's forgettable, which is why I forget why I wrote down the notes that I note. The notes that I noted. The other track that stood out was Mantastic. And oh my gosh, it was awful. It was so awful. It was a horrible song. It was so stupid. Ugh. It was so stupid. And I'm disappointed. Musically, the album was fantastic. If I could get an instrumental version of this album, of Puscifer, Normal Isn't. Instrumentally, fantastic. Great music. Lyrically, garbage. Absolute garbage. I can't get over it. It's just bad. Which is really unfortunate. I don't like it. So we got one more album that I'm going to review, which is less an album and more a remix album, a revisiting album, because I didn't. I'll talk about the originals because it's a soundtrack. I'll talk about the original soundtrack as I get into this. This is the Tron Ares Divergence album. Now, Tron Ares, of course, is a movie from Disney. It's the third Tron movie. There was Tron back in the 80s. Then there was Tron Legacy, which was in the 2000s some point, which I watched and I thought it was alright. And then there's Tron Ares. Tron Ares has a soundtrack done by Trent Reznor and Atticus Ross, but it's billed as Nine Inch Nails because Atticus is basically part of Nine Inch Nails, so him and Trent are presented as Nine Inch Nails for the soundtrack. And the soundtrack itself has been out for a while. The Tron Ares original score has been out, and it has, I think, 4 vocal tracks that are listed as Nine Inch Nails vocal tracks, which are okay. There's 2 that are obviously meant to be kind of like singles, and 2 that are, sometime during the film. And it's okay. I like those. And the soundtrack itself is alright. It runs together. It's the same kind of sounds, because that's how scores and soundtracks are. They just kind of, if it's just a film score, then you have a lot of themes that get replayed, and it's meant to be familiar, and it's meant to just make you remember certain parts of the movie, and that's fine. The Divergence album is several tracks that were cut from the main soundtrack but are still in the movie, which is weird, because if you're not going to why don't you just include all of them in the official soundtrack? If they're in the movie, release all of them. Like, there's no point in doing multiple releases unless you're trying to make money, and that's Disney. Disney, of course, owns Tron, and they're trying to make money. But it also has several remixed score tracks and remixed vocal tracks. And some of them are pretty good. It has guest vocals on multiple tracks, which I appreciate, because Nine Inch Nails music with guest vocals is a lot of times is decent. I've liked it. I'm interested. I have a near complete catalog of Nine Inch Nails songs, both official and unofficial, and live and not live, and remixes, etc. I have a massive collection of Nine Inch Nails things. And some of these are good, and they're a fresh take on some static kind of tracks, but some of them are not so great, and it's in an effort to be progressive, and I don't mean progressive in a political sense, I mean in a musical sense, and avant-garde, and ways to make the tracks, oh, look, it's interesting, we're pushing different knobs on the keyboard and on the synthesizer and whatnot, and it just sounds like you're fiddling with knobs. A lot of the new score tracks, they feel like the instrumental collection from Nine Inch Nails called Ghosts. And Ghosts was a set of tracks that Nine Inch Nails released that were basically ideas. They were things that they had thought about releasing, that they had put together, that didn't go anywhere. A lot of the tracks are only 1 minute to 2 minutes in length. It's ideas, it's demos, half finished. And so a lot of the new score tracks, they feel like that, but with more like boom, 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 with more techno beats to it, more oomph, I put in my notes. Half-finished ideas, early frameworks, not quite out of the demo stage yet. That was my notes. And the other thing that I've noticed from this and I've noticed this on the last couple of Nine Inch Nails releases, both vocal and otherwise, is that Trent Reznor really, really, really likes arpeggios. That's a really crappy example, but that's an arpeggio. That sequence of notes, an arpeggio where you go from low to high to low to high to low to high, he loves it. And so many tracks have this motif in them that it gets to be tiresome. It gets to be like, oh my gosh, are you serious? And I know this is a soundtrack score, so a lot of the tracks are going to sound similar anyway. But even the last true Nine Inch Nails release, which was... what was it? Was it Hesitation Marks, or was it one of the trilogy of things that he put out? Because he put out a trilogy of things called Not the Whatever Events, Bad Witch, and Add Violence. They had arpeggios and things. Like, it's just... it's a lot of arpeggios. There were a lot of them. And this soundtrack had a ton of arpeggios all over the place. Like, I get it, you like them, but my goodness, do you have to put them in nearly every single score track available? I don't know. It's not like the old days. It's not like the old days. I miss the Nine Inch Nails where things were truly experimental, where you didn't know exactly what you were going to get next with each track. And now it just seems kind of formulaic. I think he's merged too much of his score work with his Nine Inch Nails work, which is fine if that's what he wants. You know, I'm not gonna... Again, I'm one person. I am just one person. It's strictly my opinion. It in the end, it doesn't matter. He can do whatever he wants, and he doesn't need my permission, clearly. I don't even need to say it. If he hears this podcast ever, he can be like, well, you know, who gives a fuck what you think? Right? He can say that, and it's not offensive to me, because why would it be? Because it's his music. Okay? I just wish there was more to it. I just wish there was more depth, more something. Now, listening to these albums put things into perspective for me. Because I put out... Well, it's not out yet. Okay, as of this recording, it is not out yet. I have a new album ready and waiting. Under my project name, of course, Spider in the Hall. If you know anything about me, you know I've done this for a long time. I have 16. This is my 16th album. Or major release, anyway, of album and EP, not counting remixes and things of that nature. But I have a new album coming out. It's the first new album since 2019, which was Pyromancer. Pyromancer was the last album I put out. This is the newest one since then. It's called Kingmaker. And listening to these other albums put mine in perspective, that I really like mine better. And maybe that's just me and my ego, like, oh man, I can write better music than they can. Because that's not what it is. It's not that I can write better music than these other famous artists. It's that my tastes are that it seems like if I want to listen to music that I like, I have to make it myself. And that seems, again, very egotistical. I get it. And there is a lot of music out there that I do enjoy that I did not make. That is new. It's a weird position kind of to be in. When what I've created seems like the better option than some of my favorite musicians' offerings lately. Because I'm a big fan of Maynard. I'm a big fan of Trent. I'm a big fan of Rob Zombie. I'm a big fan of KMFDM. I wish that all of them had put out something that was better than what I have cooking. I would love to be like, yeah, this was awesome. And I can't say that about any of them. And it makes me feel kind of like, I feel like an old man, and today's music is not like it was when I was a kid. Shakes my fist. I don't know. I don't know what it is. But it's not what I was hoping for. But my album, let's talk about me for a minute. Let's talk more about me. My album is coming out soon, in the next few months. It's going to be early summer. The first single, which is an EP of 4 tracks, it's called Anchor, and it includes the tracks Anchor, Kick 'Em While They're Down, Captain Coward and the Everlasting Hate Fuck, and The Inevitable End. 4 tracks. It'll be available March 9th, 2026. I don't know if it'll actually come out on Spotify, iTunes, Amazon, wherever on time. Because my distributor, TuneCore, is dragging its feet and being kind of a pain in the ass as it has for the last several years. I feel like I'm going to have to move on to a new publisher because I've just had more and more issues with TuneCore over the past 10 years, which is a shame because I got my big break through them and it means a lot to me to keep using them, but they just, I don't know what they think. I don't want to get too into it because it just makes me irritated. But regardless of whether the single releases on streaming services, it will be released on Bandcamp March 9th, 2026 on spiderinthehall.bandcamp.com. The Anchor single. Now, if you purchase it on Bandcamp, you will also get 2 bonus tracks, which is the Anchor instrumental and an instrumental for another track from the album, The Necromancer. Both of those tracks, instrumental versions, will be available as bonus tracks if you purchase from Bandcamp. If you listen when it eventually becomes available on streaming services, on Spotify, iTunes, Amazon, Apple, wherever, it will not have those 2 bonus tracks. Okay? So it's up to you what you want. Plus there's variant cover art. The cover art is different for the Bandcamp version versus the streaming version. Now, the full album will be available in early summer. I'm not going to reveal the date just yet. I will be revealing the date soon. I have to wait until the single is released because I want to make sure all that goes well before I get people hyped for the album itself. But the album will also have a listening party the week of its release. And that will be on Twitch. So you will be able to go to my Twitch channel and hear the album in its entirety a few days before the album releases. That's in early summer. You will get more details on that as soon as I'm able to announce them. Okay? In the meantime, I have a treat for you. I have a special treat for everybody. Because the first single, which is Anchor, it's going to be released in about 5 days from now. 6 days. Or, you know what? Yeah, 5 days from now. It'll be on Monday following this show here, this recording. I'm going to play for you as the closing track. Instead of my usual outro, I'm going to play for you the first new music from Spider in the Hole in 7 years, since 2019, Anchor. Which, this version is slightly different than the version that's going to be on the album. So you still want to buy the album, okay, when it comes out. But this version is a single version, and it will be releasing March 9th, 2026 as an EP. 4 tracks on streaming services, 6 tracks on spiderinthehall.bandcamp.com. This is how I'm closing the show. I want to thank everybody for listening. I appreciate your tuning in. Here you go. Good night. This is Anchor.
Triumphant, the misery here is not mine. Circling down through the drain all the plans that you've made. Empty inside, I provide you the tomb that you crave. I am the weakness you bury deep. I am the secrets you cannot hide. I am the chain around your neck. I am the anchor that drags you down. Moving in spirals the way you've been chasing my tail. Ship is not sinking, your hatred is wind to my sails. When you betrayed yourself, it was a massacre, all of the friends you left behind. This is the road you chose to walk, it's a pattern in your mind. No forgiveness, no more chances, walls are closing in. If you still don't understand, I will tell you who I am. I am the weakness you bury deep. I am the secrets you cannot hide. I am the chain around your neck. I am the anchor that drags you down. Show has concluded, it's time to step down from the stage. We judged your performance and now we are turning the page. Nothing you do can change the past, now you dug your final grave. Always a snake and a Judas. At heart, your conscience cannot be saved. I'm not the one with the knife in hand. You were warned about this plan. I am the karma that comes for you. I will show you who I am. I am the weakness you bury deep. I am the secrets you cannot hide. I am the chain around your neck. I am the anchor that drags you down. I am the weakness you bury